So we have some news about the Andrew Yang campaign to report on. This is in Politico. They say the following. Andrew Yang's campaign fired dozens of staffers this week after an abysmal finish in the Iowa caucuses, according to 4 former staffers who were let go. Among those dismissed were the national political and policy directors of the campaign, as well as the deputy national political director, all senior-level positions. The people who were fired worked across Yang's organization, from his headquarters in New York to the now disabled Iowa operation. The Yang campaign insists it had planned to reduce the size of his organization after Iowa. The official wouldn't specify the number of people who were fired, but the fired staffers said it was in the dozens. According to FEC reports released last week, the Yang campaign had more than 230 people on staff. So the reason why this is noteworthy is not the fact that he's firing some people in and of itself, because that happens after, we just had Iowa, now we're moving past Iowa, so yes, you downsize a little bit. That does make sense. I guess there's also an argument for the opposite. Hey, after Iowa, now, if you finished high, you need more staff to go into future states that they have no boots on the ground yet. They have no organization on the ground yet, so there's an argument for downsizing. There's also an argument for doing the opposite and expanding further. Pete is now trying. He had 0 offices in California, and now after Iowa, I think he's now opening some offices and trying to get some ground game in California. But Yang and his team are downplaying this a little bit and saying, no, you're reading too much into it. But the thing that there's no way around, in my opinion, is that these are national political and policy directors of the campaign. National political and policy directors of the campaign and the deputy national political director. These are senior level positions. This isn't just like, it's just Iowa. It's just some Iowa folks. So this is a sign, regardless of what he says outwardly right now, and obviously he's not going to say it because he's about to compete in New Hampshire. But this is a sign that he sees the writing on the wall, and he's like, I'm going to have to drop out soon. And there's nothing, what I want to say to the Yang supporters is this. There's no shame in Yang eventually dropping out, because he outperformed so many people who are establishment figures and who got a significant media bump. Yang came this far with an actively hostile media towards him. He outlasted Kamala Harris and Beto O'Rourke, 2 people who, the political geniuses over 538. Nate Silver was like, these are 1 and 2 is Kamala Harris and Beto. Yang outlasted them. So he deserves nothing but credit for being an outsider, anti-establishment voice who came this far. And this is the era now of the populist, anti-establishment outsiders, because people know the system is broken and they hate it. And, when Yang drops out, I think he's going to endorse Bernie. And I think that many of his supporters actually will vote for Bernie. Because, the people who support Yang's campaign, many of them, you have to speak to each individual one on a case-by-case basis and see exactly why it is that they support him. But, I think it's fair to say that many of them support him particularly because of UBI. And the whole idea of a universal basic income is like Social Security for all, which is an attempt to actually help people who are struggling. So when you have people who are struggling and they're looking for solutions, there's another candidate in the race who happens to be the front runner who's offering real solutions to real problems. And so I think Yang also recognizes that. I think Yang supported Bernie in 2016, and now he's worked himself into a political position where if he drops out and steps up and endorses Bernie, that could have a very, very positive effect on the race. So, don't feel too bad, Yang people. He came so far with the actively hostile media and everybody writing him off, and he was on the debate stage so many times, and Yang knew going into this it was an outsider a real outsider campaign, because he's a businessman. He wasn't even a public name beforehand, and and he wasn't a politician. So you got to give him nothing but credit. And I do think he'll drop out at some point and then endorse Bernie. And then obviously it's up to his supporters to determine what they want to do. But I think many of the Yang people will end up supporting Bernie because they really want to address many of the problems. And there's a lot of crossover between Yang and Bernie when it comes to a variety of policies. So anyway, there's your update. It looks like Yang is already dropping some hints here that he'll drop out soon, and we'll see what happens from there.